if there was ever a game the Eagles might need to finish, it might be this one. Last two games they haven't finished in the second half.
Exactly. That's where I was headed next, Derek. Yeah. Exactly right. 5 straight quarters where they haven't scored a touchdown. And I keep pointing this out all weekend just because I don't want to make it sound like it's the whole team because the defense is doing their job. So let's dig into this thing because the Eagles are the lone undefeated team left now after the Dolphins go down last night. Are they an elite team?
The Eagles right now, I would have to say,
absolutely.
They're definitely in the conversation. They're definitely a team that, you know, they're on top right now. You know, everybody's looking at them. They're the new kids on the block. So they're going to get everybody's best from this point forward. And you want that, really. You want that. You want that sense of all right, we're here, we've arrived, and it's time for us to, you know, keep carving out our path and what we are on this team. So I mean, this is great for them. This is definitely great for them.
Derek, what do you think?
I put them at the elite category right now through 3 weeks, mainly because they're the last undefeated team standing. The talent has really risen to the occasion over the last 2 games. Jalen Hurts has become the talk of the league in a positive light. All off season, it was more negative, like question marks. Can he do this? Can he do that? And we are part of that, and rightfully so, because we didn't know. But because he's right now one of the top 3 passers in the game in terms of yards and things like that, hasn't made many mistakes. Absolutely, I'd put the elite moniker attached to the Eagles' name right now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's look at it from this standpoint. If it's a running game tomorrow or Sunday, excuse me, if it's a nasty weather, see, I think that's a bit of a misnomer. Like, I don't think teams all of a sudden just abandon the pass. But if it is a heavy running game, Jacksonville enters this game 10th in the league in rushing. They, you know, in terms of what they do offensively, 123.3. Flip side of that, they're first against the run. They're only giving up 55 yards per game so far this season. Eagles come in, let's see, they're 7th in rushing in the NFL at 150 per game. All right, so they're a little bit ahead of Jacksonville on that list. So the Eagles, you know, like from an offensive standpoint, we know they were the best rushing team last year. This year against the run, Eagles numbers are not great. They're okay. They're giving up 113.3, which is kind of middle of the pack. Now, some of that was skewed by that Detroit game. They've been much better the last 2 games than they were in that first game. So maybe some of that washes out. I don't know. I mean, you have Miles Sanders who you feel good about. It's a bummer. No Boston Scott here, but you'll see a little bit more Kenneth Gainwell and Trey Sermon, I would assume, would be activated. He's going to be up from the practice squad. And then the flip side of that is you have Robinson and ETN running the ball for the Jags.
Well, I think we not forget, but, you know, we talk about the Eagles' rushing attack, and a lot of it is predicated by the quarterback running the football.
True.
You know, whereas you look at the Jacksonville team, it's a 1-2 running back punch, you know, and, you know, it's nothing wrong with having a dual threat quarterback. That's what the league has shifted to, more dual threat type quarterbacks. You even look at the quarterbacks like a Josh Allen, a Trevor Lawrence, they'll step up and run in a minute. Daniel Jones, they'll take off and run in a minute, you know. So the Eagles are going to need that ground attack. They have to make amends. I mean, last year last week they were held to 72 yards rushing. Now, Washington's defense overall is not that great, but that interior line was pretty stout against the Eagles' run because of 2 guys. Now you're talking about a defensive front that is decent across the board. Young, still finding its way, but they can hold up its own against the run. So I think it's going to be a great test for both teams in terms of trying to establish the run. The Eagles have been a very balanced team through 3 games. They've been in their 30s basically both games in terms of running and passing the football. So I don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know how much rain we're supposed to get Saturday and Sunday. It's supposed to rain all the way through Monday. To what degree, we don't know. Depends on how this thing shifts.
Right.
I do think that 12th man, which is the weather in this case, if it rains as much as they're talking about, could have a significant impact on who establishes the line of scrimmage, controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football.
You're absolutely right, man. If I say what team has the advantage, I'm going to say the Eagles. I think they have the advantage because they have the dual threat, of understanding that, they can always look to Jalen as that extra threat. You have to defend all 11 players as opposed to just defending 3. He's shown the capacity to go out there and throw the ball, well. So, that's something that the defense has to go out there and make sure they stop. And I'm gonna say this: when it rains like that, when the weather's bad, when the footing isn't good, it's actually an offensive line's advantage, because when the defense can't get off the ball like that, their defense is predicated on movement and beating you to a spot and being aggressive and getting up the field. When you don't have the traction to do that, now you're playing into the offensive line's hands. And when you got, 380 on one side, 380 at tackle, 360, 350 at guard, on the right side, once you get that inertia going, you know what I'm saying? It's law of gravity takes over. Now, big guys will eat up little guys then. Big guys beat up little guys then. And it's a smaller defensive line than you usually have. So I think that I know that this will be a decided advantage for the Eagles, and plus they love to run the ball. I think the Eagles will have the not slight, but I think it'll be a commanding advantage on them running the ball. This will be a game where I wish we had Boston Scott, because it'd be perfect. It would be perfect for him, picking him up and putting him down. This will be
low center of gravity.
Slashing. Oh man, this would be great for him. We got to move on. This is where you make your money, Miles Sanders. This is where you take that next step at being one of the elite. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
me too. Look, circle back real quick. AJ did have a son, AJ Brown. So congrats to AJ.
Definitely.
His second child. Yeah. But he's good to go. No restrictions today. He's ready to rock and roll as far as Sunday goes. But all right, look, here's the question I have for you. What concerns you about this Eagles team right now?
Special teams.
Okay.
Special teams. I need more of the return game. I need this to be a weapon. It's not a weapon now. 2/3 of this team is balling. That 1/3, man, it could be the difference between us winning and losing games, because we can't flip the field. We can't get any advantage from the special teams. We're not pinning anybody back. We're not advancing the ball up, returning kicks to get a decided advantage on field position for the offense. The only thing we can do is kick field goals, and we had one blocked 2 weeks ago. So, special teams, we got to get it together. They've got to become a weapon. Coach Phipp had that defense, that special teams rolling. Donnie Longball pinning guys. That's when football was great with the special teams.
Right.
It's a decided disadvantage for this Eagles team right now. A decided advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. With the excluding Elliott, everything else, there's nothing else you feel real confident about in any aspect of it. Right. Look, ultimately, is that a good problem to have? Yeah, for sure. It's a good problem that's where your focus is, but it's real. And this is where it gets you is tight games. Games where the Eagles are in control, not so much. This could be a weird kind of game. And ball security could be big on those punts.
It could be huge. The disadvantage for us. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure we get something in the return game, even kickoffs. I'm sorry, but man, our kickoff game absolutely is atrocious. We don't kick off the ball, and when you have bad weather like this, they're gonna make you return the football. Yep. They're gonna make our kickoff return.
Yeah, they're gonna punch it short, that 10-yard line, one of those deals.
And because they know we can't do it.
I don't blame them.
Yep.
So now it's becoming a negative. Say what you want to say at this point. Quez is just not a kickoff returner. Yeah. He hadn't shown me anything.
Yeah,
Quez
fast doesn't mean you can return a kick.
Right. And are you gonna bring up Covey?
You can only do it
this time.
Yeah,
he's got to stay up.
Right. You can't keep doing it. Yeah.
Do we have a spot for him?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know who it is. Do you trust putting back there Devontae Smith being a starting punt return?
I don't like that.
Because they don't block.
I don't like it.
They don't block.
No, I don't like it. I think it's a situation. It's like a break glass in case of emergency, like they used to do with Deshaun Jackson. If you're down, you're down 10 in the third, you want to throw him back there. Okay. but I don't need to start the game with him returning punts personally.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't like Quez back there. If teams MO is going to start being, kick it shorter to make them run it back, I don't like Quez taking unnecessary shots. He's not that big of build, number one. And you got guys flying down the field. Your kickoff team doesn't block that well. The kickoff team is blocking is almost bad as your punt team. You imagine that dude taking unnecessary shots?
No, thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Ankle, knee, anything, especially on a slippery track.
Mm-hmm.
Anything and everything could happen. I don't like him back there to begin with, fielding kickoffs on a dry surface, let alone a potential wet surface.
That could be some bad football going on, man. So I'm
it's a bit of a concern. All right, next question. Is this the best team they played? Detroit, Minnesota, Washington. Keep in mind, this Jags team lost to that Washington team the Eagles handled last week. Is this the best team they played so far?
I'm saying no.
You think Minnesota is?
No, I think Detroit is.
Okay. Okay.
I still think Detroit's the better of all the three teams we played. They brought more to their defense. Spanked us.
Certainly the closest game. I mean, that's a 38-35 game.
Yes. They're the best team we've played thus far. Are they better than the Jaguars? I'm going to say yes. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say yes. I running back, I like their running back better. I like both of their running backs better. I like their offensive line better. I actually like their defensive line better also. I like their secondary better. To me, they're a better team, even on paper, than Jacksonville. You know what I'm saying? I just see it that way. Although they're turning the corner, but they haven't turned the corner yet. So that's why I'm saying I think Detroit's the best team we've played thus far this season.
How about you, Derek?
I would agree with Barrett, but I would also throw in the caveat only because Jacksonville is such a young team still trying to find its way. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson with Detroit had a lot of veteran players on that team that had been together for a while. Their coach is in his second year. You got a new mindset down in Jacksonville, a proven winner in Doug Peterson, but he had to assemble this thing. And the draft picks they've had through the years, as we talked about with Demetrius, are starting to pay off. They're still a young team. They believe in themselves now, but they haven't had that metal tested at this point. They played a Colts team that was 0-2 and they played them. They played a beat-up Chargers team. Well, they lost Bosa during the game. Herbert's playing with a busted rib cartilage. So I would say in terms of just overall physicality, ebbs and flows of a game, that Detroit game and that Detroit team was their best competition. Now, granted, both teams coming out of the gate, first game of the season, everything's not perfect. You're not completely in sync, especially an Eagles team that did nothing in the preseason in terms of the frontline players playing in exhibition games. It took them a little while to get their thing going. So I'll say Detroit is ahead of Jacksonville at this point.
Yeah, I think I would say that right now for sure. And to be determined as we go along here with Jacksonville. I think there's a little bit. It is strange to me, and I know, hey, look, any given week, there's no doubt in that league, but I'm not sure after what I saw from Washington last week, how the Jags lost to that team, how they didn't wreak havoc with Wentz. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Look, maybe I'm not giving the Eagles enough credit too, which I think we tend to always look for reasons why it's not the Eagles. Maybe the Eagles played that well.
That's where I am right now. Right, yeah. That's where I am right now. I mean, people thought I had three heads when I said it didn't matter who the Eagles were going to play heading into that Minnesota game. I said it doesn't matter who the Eagles are playing. They know what they left on the field. They know the way they felt coming off that field, and I knew they were going to play an extraordinary game going into that game against Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And that's just because I know, that coaching staff. Offensive line coach pissed that they played the way they played. Well, I'm telling you, he's pissed because they didn't run the ball like they were supposed to run the ball this last game against Washington. So you're going to get a different effort out of them going into this game.
I think, the Hurts thing is such an X factor and possibly even more so with this bad weather because he can kill you with his arm and his wheels. Like Trevor Lawrence is athletic and will keep plays alive in the pocket and will climb the pocket, but he doesn't have that ability to just carve you up the way that Hurts does with his legs.
Right.
They haven't, the Jags haven't seen this, with what he's able to do. That's the part that's going to be fascinating. And to counter it, Doug's got that institutional knowledge of Jalen too.
Exactly.
So how does that little,
well,
tete-a-tete work?
Not only that, but if Mike Caldwell is a true disciple of Todd Bowles, I guarantee you he's already talked to Todd Bowles about getting information on how to defend Jalen.
Great point.
Mike Caldwell, I can't say it enough, has risen up the ranks rapidly in terms of being recognized as a quality defensive coordinator. But I don't know if he'll ever be a head coach because of his demeanor. He's so quiet. Most coaches, not yellers, but they're more verbose, let's say.
Yeah.
And Mike Caldwell isn't that kind of guy. Mike Caldwell likes being in the role he's in, doesn't have to be the guy out front answering all the questions. But as we've heard talking to people this week, the wheels are always spinning. They've looked at that tape from Tampa Bay. Now, obviously, they didn't have A.J. Brown in the equation last year. They've studied – Caldwell has studied that tape thoroughly of what Tampa Bay did to them in the playoff game. They've studied what Washington's interior did in terms of taking away the running game from this Eagles team. It's going to be interesting. Interesting. I think if I'm putting money on the line, yes, I'm taking the Eagles. They're at home. They're the last undefeated team standing, no question about it. They have the better overall talent on both sides of the football. I just think it's going to be an interesting chess match on Sunday.
Yeah, I do too. I wonder, like I wondered last week, the emotional pitch for Wentz. Does Doug have these guys firing crazy early? And if you're able to just kind of withstand that, what happens after that? Is there a little bit of a pin hit in the balloon for them?
Yeah, exactly.
Because emotions work both ways, right? You can make it in your advantage or it can hurt you.
I mean, they weather the storm and take their first, boom, 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 boom. Do they have enough towards the end or towards the middle? Like, oh man, they keep coming to drove because the Eagles, they can keep coming at you. Now they got Hurts. He's came out there. Oh, now they hit AJ. Oh, now they hit Smitty. Oh, they start running the ball again. Oh, now they hit Dallas Goedert. I mean, they come from everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So can they weather that storm? Mm-hmm. Is that defense good enough?
If there was ever a game,
yeah.
If there was ever a game the Eagles might need to finish, it might be this one. Last two games they haven't finished in the second half.
Exactly. That's where I was headed next there. Yeah. Exactly right. 5 straight quarters where they haven't scored a touchdown. And I keep pointing this out all weekend just because I don't want to make it sound like it's the whole team because the defense is doing their job. They're not giving points up, but the offense has not been good enough. But some of that is, human nature where you let up a little bit, right? And some of that is they are playing the clock. Like Nick's been interesting this week. He said, we probably took our foot off the pedal too much against Minnesota, and we tried too hard. I forget what his explanation was against Washington. He felt like they were going at it a little too aggressively, and it kind of backfired on them. So anyway, they're trying to find a happy medium somewhere. They're aware of the issue. But you're right, Derek. This thing could very well be a field goal game in the fourth quarter. You got to be able to finish.
When you talk about that Washington game, the Eagles will never admit that, but the way that game played itself out, the Eagles could have been sitting on a 13-0 lead in the second half and would have known there's no way Washington is going to be a threat to us for the rest of this game. Yep. Basically, we watched enough games. You can tell body language and ebbs and flows of a game to know whether a team has that wherewithal to attempt to even come back to make it a close game. Washington wasn't that team last Sunday. Mm-hmm. There's no way they were coming back in that game the way Carson was getting tattooed by that defensive front.
Carson lost that game for him. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So
but the other thing is, like, flip side of that is, and we'd be having a much different conversation had they lost that Detroit game. They didn't, right? They didn't. So you can play the what if game with a million different scenarios. But that's a game where if there was 5 minutes left in that game, 5 more minutes, additional minutes, I think the Eagles probably lose. So I mean, everything is dependent on that week. That game is its own entity in a lot of ways. So it's hard to know. I mean, the one thing is, as much as we're talking about how maybe the Eagles haven't been great in scoring in second halves, they are destroying teams in the first half. They're averaging, I think it's 321 yards in the first half of games. Teams don't do that for entire games. They are coming out and throwing Mike Tyson, haymakers at teams.
Well, also, I mean, what if they don't get out to a great start? They go into the second half and, they've never been behind. Well, they haven't been behind going into the second half. So, do they have the can they keep their? Well, I know they'll keep the composure because, look who they have at quarterback. He's one of those guys that, you look at Jalen, he's so laid back and cool with the situation. He kind of calms everything down and commands that huddle. I think that, this learning process has allowed him to become a better leader. He's done it when they've lost, and he's doing it now when they're winning. So this only helps him out a lot more, and it gives him more of a sense of how to lead this team and what to do with it and how to do it.
Yeah. Look, and all of this is part of the process too. They're still young in a lot of areas. The quarterback's young. The coach is still young. The receiving core is relatively young. So they're
really young.
Yeah, we don't
Pascal's the old one.
Right. I don't think we always take that into account.
Right.
And I think that's part of this team figuring everything out. They're not a finished product right now, as they will be. All right. So we'll continue with the Eagles discussion, and then we're going to dive into the NFL as well. We'll, like we said, swing it back to the Tua thing. We'll get into some of the bigger matchups around the NFL in week 4. We'll throw our upsets in there. We got our upset game as well. I'll update you on a couple injuries, and we'll see how that affects these games as well. You don't want to go anywhere. By the way, 2:00 hour, Chris Long, honorary captain for this Sunday's game, but of course, big piece of that Super Bowl 52 team and one hell of a career on top of that. So Chris Long coming up in the 2:00 hour. All right, don't go anywhere. Derrick, Barrett, Rob, we are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Before I get into exactly what they can do for you, I just want to tell you about what kind of people they are. They're headed down to Florida right now to help out everything that's gone down with Hurricane Ian. That's what they're all about. And they've done this countless times around the country and around the world. They help people out when they are in their worst kind of moments. So Pro Action is the place that you call or reach out to if your home, your business, or a property that you own may have experienced water, fire, smoke, mold damage, etc. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I've gone through it. It was on a Saturday. They got right over there. They fixed the problem. They cleaned it up. The crew was unbelievable, and the price was right. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company. Again, it could be any of the above: water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.